Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another week. Barry and I were talking last week about... Sorry, my dog's moving around here.
Noise.
About been quiet all morning. So we were talking last week about how men and women, we were saying that it tends to be mostly
Men.
Yeah, mostly men, but definitely women too. And why it is that some of us are attracted to younger people. That when we choose a partner, we like somebody that's, say, 10, 15 years younger than us, or even, oh my gosh, you can even go 30, 40. Like I was saying, if I was in my 20s, I would date Mick Jagger. So and there's a few others, I have to say. There's quite a few others that I find equally attractive who are in their 80s. So I'm in my 60s. So yes, I could definitely be attracted to somebody. Again, if they're talented, they're vital, they're alive, they bring something to the table, I could definitely be attracted to older men. But this week, we're going to talk about the benefits of being with somebody our own age, what that brings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And last week, Barry was on the hot seat because he was the man. I shared a little bit. I had some
Yes.
experience being younger men, but very short-lived. But most of the men I have dated have been within that 2 to 5 year range of being mostly older than me, couple like 2 years, one in fact 2 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
But there is just so much richness in being with somebody, as you said last week, Barry, who's had life experience. I can certainly, I'm an artist, I'm a painter. I love beautiful. I can also look at beautiful women and appreciate the beauty of somebody. And I can look at beautiful young men and see the beauty in them. I'm just not attracted to them physically. I don't want to be in a relationship with them, but I can certainly, value and see how beautifully that they look, their bone structure, things like that. So, but yeah, Barry, what do you think about? You said you were talking mostly last week about having a range, but would you say in general that your range does fall towards that 10 to 15 years younger more than towards your own age? What would you say?
I'm using it as an outside parameter, so to speak. So basically, it's from somebody who's close to my age to being up to about 10, 15 years younger at most, sort of thing. So there's a spectrum in there.
Yes,
but something
exactly.
everyone brings this conversation to is that sense of life experience. And I mentioned last week, I use this term again, youthful energy, because it's not something that is common in people who've been through lots of experiences. Like I was saying last week about the dating apps, where I see women's physical attraction, like their facial expressions, their eyes, their skin, everything else. There are women who look like they've been through the wars, so to speak. Like they look like they're very old, even when they may be younger than me by quite a bit. And also there are women I've seen who, and this in real life too, many women who are close to my age, who have still got that sense of vitality and youthfulness. And I know it could be hormonal, it could be other things too, physically. But a lot of it's about internal experience. And that thing we talk about being about some of the same age is there's a level of having been through enough life experience so that maybe we don't take life so seriously. Maybe we have more of a gentle connection with life itself. So we have more grace, more flow with life than if we were younger. There's different qualities that can come forward when we have had a certain level of experience through life anyway. And for most of us, when we are getting past the midpoint of life, so to speak, we have more of perhaps a different handle on life than we were when we were 20.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, quite honestly, if I was a man, I would have run away from me 1,000 miles when I was in my 20s. I talk about baggage. I mean, I have far less baggage now than I had when I was in my 20s.
Right.
We brought that up last week, that I've heard men say, oh, younger women have less baggage than older women who have got children, been divorced, everything. Yes, I am divorced. Yes, I have grown children. I mean, I'd hardly ever look at that as baggage. They're the
Right.
most fabulous things in my life.
Hmm.
But as far as unhealed childhood wounds, I was like, I mean, I had so much of that when I was in my 20s. I mean, the poor men that I met, I'm giving a blanket apology to anybody that I mistreated, which, many, not intentionally by any means, but I was so screwed up in my 20s that I definitely did things and said things and whatever that I deeply regret and would never do today. Ever. The person I am today would never do those things. Um, I make myself sound terrible, but just I was, yeah, I was just immature and I was selfish. I was thinking of me and my wounds and my trauma and so it was, yeah, it was not a pretty sight. So,
Well, let's,
uh,
let's be clear here also, because yes, that generally speaking, those people who are still very young, who may have gone through stuff in their childhood or other things, may not have had the chance or the courage or the ability to face those things and heal them at that point. So later in life, when they have done, and there are plenty of people, particularly men who are in later years, who have never faced those stuff inside themselves. So they act out, they behave in ways around other people, around their partners, that is not very positive or uplifting or happy. So I'm not saying that with maturity comes automatically the journey.
yeah.
So we're talking
Oh
about
no,
somebody who consciously done the work, and that's one reason why. And we talked this another. I think we talked this before in other shows. How the dating pool does tend to somewhat shrink for those of us who have been doing this work for years. That as we get more mature, as we get we're older, who we find attractive is a smaller group because there are so many people out there who have not done any work, even if they are 50, 60, 70, that we don't want to be with them because they'd be better as a client than they would be as a partner.
no,
So that,
exactly. And they can, as well as not only not doing the work over the years or processing whatever trauma they have, they sort of add to the, I call it bag of woe. It's like, oh, here's another experience to add, like a big rock to add to my bag of woe that's weighing me down because the world is a rotten place and everybody in it is really horrible and, woe is me. And they become bitter.
hmm
So it's sometimes exactly, it's not just getting older, you get wiser. So, you have to consciously, for me, I grew up with a mother that was an atheist, but I kept thinking, my childhood was so traumatic for me in many ways that I hit my 20s. I was like, I got to make sense of this, and
hmm
the way I made sense of it was through spirituality. So I started on a spiritual path as soon as I got here in 1998. Sorry, 1981 it was. So I was 22, but I started on a path, but I didn't get into therapy until I was 30. And it was the combination, that's why I teach spiritual psychology, is the combination of a spiritual understanding and a psychological understanding is what helped me heal from that childhood trauma. But so that's the one thing that, as I say, for me, yeah, I am a much better, much better partner today than I was
yeah,
in my 30s. And a couple of things came with that. Well, understanding ourselves, really, really knowing ourselves. And we talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago now about confidence. That is
yes,
something that I gained through knowing who I truly am at my essence, that, spiritual being equal to everyone else on the planet. Now, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I didn't ever feel equal to everybody else. I was either being told by my mother we're better than other people, but internally feeling less than other people. So there was always this push and pull between that. But with age, I have gained I say age and spiritual understanding. I have gained a confidence I never had when I was younger, and that again, I think is very attractive. Somebody that really knows who they are and is confident
hmm
is an attractive thing too. Um, and there's some other ones as well and I want your feedback on some of these things. I
sure,
think also when I was younger, and I'm really being open here and honest, there was a part of me having grown up without a father, completely abandoned by him, who he lived a couple of miles down the road. So it's like, it wasn't like he went lived in another country or another town or anything. He was right there under my nose, or I was under his nose, and yet absolutely no communication,
Mhm.
no, not even looking at me. Obviously, did not live with us, clearly. But there was a part of me that missed out on having a father figure so much and wanted to be acknowledged by my father, loved by my father, protected by my father, all the things that he didn't do. That was a missing piece in me. So
Yes.
I did look for that in a partner. And when I was younger, it was with older men. But
Mhm.
even when I started dating men of my own age or around my own age, that need was still there.
Absolutely.
That desire to be taken care of was still there. And I know that with as I've matured and become older, I don't have that anymore. I am so in love with being able to take care of myself, not in a defensive way, not in a, no, I don't need your help, I can do it, but in a
Mhm.
genuine, no, it's okay. We're partners here. I can take care of myself. Some
Well,
very different energy. Have you come across that? What is your
I was going to
reflection on
say,
that?
first of all, it's just demonstration of the work you've done, and that you really put yourself front and center to basically not carry that wound anymore, which is a big piece of the work that a lot of people don't do. And
Mm,
that's the thing is we all, I would say everyone on the planet has picked up stuff from their parents they didn't expect or didn't recognize till later on as some sort of belief system or behavior or wound or something else. And it can be benign and doesn't have any effect whatsoever. It can be a major stumbling block for having healthy relationships. That's why we talk about this all the time in this podcast. For me, my sense is I've seen that around clients, certainly around certain friends of mine, men and women, who, with the way they talk, the way they express, and the way they be in a relationship with people around me, I can sense where there's pieces that they haven't faced yet or resolved or healed. And for myself, as I've shared before in the podcast too, I grew up in a fairly secure, stable family structure, so to speak. I had my own issues to work through because of things happened to my family that just didn't give me everything I needed to go forward, which I've worked on and healed since. And so, yes, having been on the journey myself with being a spiritual student and through spiritual psychology as well, I have tools now that I've really changed my own life. And frankly, I was making some mistakes in relationship the last relationship I had that ended in 2006, which is 18 years ago. Wow, 18 years ago almost, was clearly things that I now won't do because I know now I've done the work to heal from that one as well. And sometimes relationships are the crucibles where we do, in fact, bring up the stuff we haven't resolved to work on. That's one of the gifts and curses of being in a relationship. So I know that for most people when in a relationship, that's their opportunity to show up to work on stuff. But for me, I I I will not. I'm going to be careful I say this. Being around a woman who has not worked through her father wound and wants
mm,
to look at me to take care of that, I will have a level of centeredness, but also a detachment to say, you know what, that you need to work on with your therapist, not with me.
yeah.
Because those sort of things, it can get really enmeshed if, like you and I, we know stuff and we're with a partner who hasn't resolved things. If we want to start helping them out, that's very messy territory to be in. But to
Mm,
say to them, I notice this is something you're facing, and I don't want to be the one to help you heal it. Much as I love you and care about you and want to be your partner, I'd rather you work with somebody outside of our relationship just to be clean so we
mm.
can be in a better place together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting as you were talking, I was thinking that the man that I did date that was just a couple of years younger than me,
Hmm.
um, definitely had a mother wound. And it's interesting, the women before me were all older than him, and the
Hmm.
women after me that I knew he dated were older than him.
Yeah,
And he had this energy about really, he had issues around his mother. And so it works both ways. Again, it's not just the father wound, it can be the mother wound as well.
yeah.
Um, but interestingly, I was so ashamed of my father wound that I
Hmm.
mastered it by
Yeah,
being hyper independent. So it wasn't like I was like, take care of me, take care of me. It was a desire of mine, but I was so ashamed
absolutely.
of it. It was my shadow. So I was like super independent. I don't need anybody. I'm fine. Yeah,
Hmm.
So now I can actually say, yeah, I need some help. Can you help me? I mean, that's the level of maturity where I can
Yeah.
say to my partner, I do need some help here, not I don't expect it and then feel resentful because I can't ask for it and then beat somebody up for not offering it.
Well, the thing that is clearly,
Thing
yeah,
to do.
but the thing about it is you're not coming. That's not from a wound you're carrying. That's from wholeness, because you really get. Because that's the other part of being human. We're not totally functionally independent. We can do things on our own, but it's having someone to help us is such a gift when we are in a place we can receive it. But it's not
Yeah.
because we suddenly feel helpless and we're looking for the father figure to help us or a mother figure to help us, or because we are avoiding that with all, like the plague. It really is that level of maturity that we've basically gone through in our own journeys to be able to be in a relationship from an honest, authentic, and clean place, which is a gift, frankly.
Well, it what it does is it if there is any sort of power struggle or power dynamic that goes on, often when there's a big age group, age difference rather, not age group, age difference, that the older person can hold the power, and
Hmm.
having that power differentiation in a relationship is not healthy either. I mean, it leads to resentment. It leads to sort of somebody needs to. Is my dog snoring now? Sorry about that.
I didn't hear it actually.
There's drilling in next door. Let's put it that way. But I was saying, yeah, having an
The power.
unequal power dynamic in a relationship is also unhealthy, and that tends to, when you are with somebody of the same age, that there is, not saying that cannot happen. Obviously, my work is with codependency and narcissistic abuse.
Hmm.
There is definitely a power struggle there, but if you take the age difference out, that can sometimes, there's less of it. Not saying
Yes.
that's always true by any means. I mean, you will have powerful, domineering, aggressive, frightened, scared people that want to dominate and control another person, regardless of an age difference. But the one of the other things, I think it's expectations of our partner. I think when we're of different ages, we might have expectations that are unrealistic.
Yeah.
And I think when you're often around the same age, you understand each other's struggles. You know what life has what you've been through in life. You've had similar stages of life experience, whether that's been in your personal life, whether it's been in your professional life. And I'm thinking of a few things. That some of it is like losing parents.
Hmm.
Often many of us get into our 50s and 60s, and that's when we're all starting to lose our parents. Well, I think, again, there's a whole range of ways that you can respond to losing your parents. But somebody that's never had to go through that might not understand. They'd be like, well, you're an adult. Why do you still care that your parent has passed on? And that some people I see I mean, this wasn't my experience with my mother. I didn't, I was sad to not have her, but I didn't have this sort of like, my mother's gone. I didn't have that feeling. But some people, it doesn't matter how old you are, your parent is still your parent. And
Yeah.
when they've gone, it is still very dramatic for them. And 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 if you're with a much younger person that might not understand that, might not be able to support you through that, might have judgment about that, like why at 50 or 60 are you mourning the loss of your parent who's 80 or 90? They had a long life, you shouldn't feel this way, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, grief is grief. So I won't even, we've all explored that before in another episode, I know. But the thing is that we, there's always some connection between child and parent, no matter what age we are. So when one is gone, it it's interesting because I mean, I look back at having lost both my parents at different times. I can see the different experience I had with each of them, and the different feeling I had after I lost each of them. Or not, and lost is the wrong word. That they transitioned, they're done, they're gone, so to speak. Because I didn't lose them. It wasn't like I lost them in a car crash or like that, or I lost them in the forest. It's like no, they passed on. So the
Yeah.
thing I want to say is that part of life is that. Part of life is letting go. Part of life is death. So it is. There's a part of us that can go very clinical and say, "Well, you shouldn't be worried about it now because they're gone. They had, like you said, they had a long life. It's good. Get over it." It's like no, because the child inside of us still loves the parent who was there and who's now gone. No matter what the relationship was, some part of that connection is still living in us. And so if we don't
Mm.
honor that, we're stifling part of ourselves. So I feel like when we have the experience of losing somebody, parent, that is acknowledging, at least within ourselves, just even if it's not there, just say, is there any part of me that feels like I've lost something? Be open to find out, because part of the grieving process is to acknowledge what love was there. And sometimes that love is very construed or mangled because of the way the family dynamic was. But even so, there's still something in there. And so, yeah, I would say that having somebody who's, I'm not saying they've been through the same thing, but someone of the same maturity who knows what that feeling is like can create a much safer place and a more comfortable space to be together, because it isn't something that somebody who's younger may have experienced. Then again, I know people who are younger lost their parents when they were young too. So it's not that isn't
Exactly.
necessarily an age specific thing, but definitely common experiences do bond, which is true. I'll say
Yeah.
that much.
Another one I think is the midlife crisis. For goodness sake, I think we all go through it to some degree or another in some form. We don't Doesn't mean we all have to run off and buy a sports car and have an affair, but you do sort of hit that milestone in our life where we're like, wow, what have I
Hmm.
done with my life? And it can be, or again, our own mortality is a little closer than it was when we were 20. That's why we do reckless things in our 20s. We think we've got the rest of our life to do anything. I'm
Hmm.
invincible. But then you get to a certain age and maybe illness or something like that, and you are faced with your own mortality. And that
Yeah.
is, again, I think, a richness that people that are experiencing the same thing can bring to each other: the support, the understanding, the love, the yes, me too, I am facing those things too. What do I want to do with the rest of my life? I've come this far, sort of just basically doing whatever I wanted, but or it can be the difference. Sometimes, again, I think one of the most profound moments is when we have lost our parent, because often, as I think we've talked about this before, where we're living the first part of our life in either in reaction or we're either adhering to our parents' values or we're pushing against them. So sometimes there comes that point in our life where we've lost our parents, where we're free to be like, well, who the heck am I? What do I want to do in life? And
That is,
again,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's
yeah.
that's the thing. That I mean, the midlife crisis thing that cracks me up because I've had my midlife crisis in my 20s. That's a different story. But
I
but the
I
thing,
have one every decade. you know.
again, the thing, and one piece also about losing parents is that, especially if we're first, because I was firstborn, is there's something inside that clicks because it now becomes like there's nobody ahead of me in the line of the lineage, sort of thing. There's a part of me, even though it's not, I don't have a big, massive family, so it's not a massive lineage, but the fact that no, there's nobody now ahead of me, no grandparents, no parents, no great grandparents from before that. I'm now the eldest in my family, and that
Mm,
just feels weird. And so there's nothing to do with it, just an awareness I've had. But that midlife
mm,
crisis point is oftentimes is that we don't, when we get to midlife crisis, we look back at our 20s and what we were hoping for, we don't have that yet. And so there's a part of us that's missing the dream that we thought we were going to have when we were younger and crush it and go out and make a miracle happen and do big things. And then we're at 40 and like nothing's changed.
mm,
So that's one of those things that I would say, one of my favorite jokes that when I went around people I've met before and talked to them is like, one of the good questions I ask them is like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Even if they're in the 60s, because it starts them things like, what? It's like, because
mm,
sometimes they give themselves permission to dream even. So being around someone, and this is the other part, is that when you're with somebody of the similar age, even if you haven't been through the same journey they have, you may be able to relate to what they're going through now or what they went through to hold space for them, which is something else as a gift you can give your partner, which when you're 20s, you don't know what to do with that. But if you're a bit
yeah,
older, you have a sense of like, I can hold a bigger space for my partner to let them be free to do what they want to do, which is a huge gift to give somebody.
yeah. Well, we how much longer have we got here? I want to move on to another subject. I'm
Ooh.
going to keep one to the very end. I'm going to
Oh,
put you back on the hot seat.
oh
So
no.
we've I think that another thing that happened, well, certainly for me,
Hmm.
um, when I was talking about sort of this is building on what we talked about the sort of not needing somebody to parent me and to fulfill a
Hmm.
role that was missing in my early childhood. But what I've also found is that I'm so much more independent. I know what I like, and I'm the rules. I've mentioned before. I'm with Hootie is my partner of 14 years. I love him dearly. We are committed. We are going to spend the rest of our life together, but we don't live together.
Hmm.
And I don't. I'm so happy where I am in my life with my own little home, and he loves his home, that we don't we are so independent, at the same time, as I say, so loving, nurturing, supportive and everything like that. But there is a level of independent and autonomy that I have at this age that I didn't have when I was younger.
Yep.
Even though I've always loved spending time alone, I was sort of acquiescing to social norms. Well, you should live together now, or you should get married, or you should this. There's all these shoulds that were running my life when I was younger that I don't have anymore. I just am so sort of, it comes with that confidence, it comes with that life experience of, no, nobody's making the rules up but you. You're the ones
Mm.
that make the rules up for your life.
Right.
And and that I think is a very um, rich place to get to in life, where you are so okay with also asking for what you want. They say there's a saying amongst women that menopause. What happens at menopause? You grow a spine. It's not that you stop having menstrual, you know, periods. You grow a spine. You actually get to the point where you're like, I have been a people pleaser all my life. And not that you become this rude, nasty old lady, but you're more free to stand up for yourself, to say what your wishes and desires are. You're less about being, codependent and putting everybody else's needs first. So I think that is, and what comes with that, which I think is wonderful, is that when you're with somebody that you want as opposed to need, that other
Hmm.
person feels that. Who wants to be needed? Like, oh, you fill a box, I need. This is my needy box. Oh, you're great, you'll fit. Whereas wanting somebody is about that individual, is about it's I want you, not to fulfill a need, but because I want you. You are so special. I want you in my life. I want you as my partner. I want to do things with you.
Right.
So have you experienced that at all?
Yeah, I think I've told the story before about the white knight experience I had when I was in my early 30s. But basically, I went through an experience where I took on the mantle of being the white knight, and I actually got a license plate on my car because my car was white, and put the license plate on there. And the challenge with that is I kept attracting damsels in distress, like women who needed help. And it was I suddenly got very quickly the lesson that's not the way to live. It wasn't going to work.
Duh.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, it felt noble at the beginning because I mean, since I was a kid, chivalry was always something, knights in shining armor, Camelot, all these different things were great things I loved thinking about and read books about this stuff. So to embody that was felt so noble and so great. But I saw the downside of it very quickly, and
Yeah.
it was the joke about that was, and I tell the story is that this went for a couple of years, and I was around women, and I mean, I didn't date them any because when I was around them, I could feel that hook, and I went, no, 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 back away, sort of thing. So I said, finally, I have to get rid of the license plate because it's just too much karma, too much stuff. And within 2 weeks, the car got stolen with a license plate on it.
Yeah.
So,
Thank God.
yeah, well, that's the thing is that was like spirit going, here's the lesson. You're done with the lesson? Good. Here's
Exactly.
over. So, in that sense
Exactly.
of need versus want was such a
Yeah.
great, it's such a great component to be aware of because the things for me, learning that relationships are additive versus gap filling. Talking about the Jerry Maguire, you complete me, which is such a fallacy. I was like, I have one thing. We talked about this in codependency. So having
Mhm.
somebody that adds to your life versus somebody who you need to feel something you don't have, absolutely is something you want to talk about to do the work for because you want an additive relationship.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I'm looking at the time. I don't have time to ask the last question.
Oh no!
I'm going to ask it and I'm going to let you sit with it. So often,
Oh goody!
as a woman that has aged, I have had, when I was single, men come up to me, younger men in particular, who are like, older women know what they want in bed. That is that is something that is assumed that as women get older, they are much more confident about their sexuality and asking for what they want. So that was going to be something that I'm going to let you finish on that note. Actually, we can go a little longer this time. What has been your experience with that?
Well, I was going to say you should be on the hot seat for that question.
Did you like the way I just like moved you over into the hot seat?
Yeah, interesting. Well, no, I mean, for me, the thing I've learned, and this is from my own experience, and also with women I know very well who told me this, is that women may know what they want, but they also want to find a man to explore with. that they're not assured that they know everything. Because the thing is, unless women have spent a lot of time doing tantra, other things too, where they discover for themselves what they really want for themselves, most women are still, in some areas, somewhat naive. Not that they don't know anything, but just they haven't explored everything. And to be with a partner who will be willing to explore with them is the biggest gift they give themselves. I'll leave it there.
All right. Well, that was a good one. And we finished on time.
Hey,
Uh,
how about that?
hey. Well, that was another great conversation. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will see you all next week. Have a
See you next week.
fabulous
Take care.
day. And you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.